Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avagnoni.
bringing you this week's Living Ascension. I almost said uninvisibility.
I was thinking ascended world. So
All kinds of stuff. Oh, yeah. So this is actually a great opening because I feel like this is going to be a multiple week topic, right?
right. I agree.
But there is so much, what we were talking about is this. So like, okay, we're evolving, both of us evolve our businesses, we evolve what we focus on. As we do work in spirituality, we're constantly, this is all what we do here is all about the collective stream of consciousness, like where we are. And one of the things that, I've learned and been focused on ever since Trinity came in 10 years ago and whatever is our spirituality is constantly to evolve, right?
Right.
And I feel like the biggest challenges our allowance to letting go of what we did last week, last month, 6 months ago. And also, I come back to this analogy often. When I had for a while an organic herb nursery, and I had gone to this commercial level, and I remember being a part of this group. It was like a co-op, but not quite. And I was in with these other organic growers, and I had gone into organic gardening, but I had started in what they call, traditional, which is really conventional. That's it. Conventional. Yeah. And which is really full of pesticides and crap and not earth friendly stuff and all that kind of stuff. Right. So I remember talking to this grower who had always done organic. And he said to me, listen, he said, I'm going to just give you some insights as you're new to, newer to this, especially on a commercial level. He said that, when people change over from conventional to organic, he said, the first thing we tend to do is we apply the same mindset from conventional into organic, which is I'm always reacting to things. I'm always reacting. And he said, so then what you do is you do the same things as you did in conventional, but then you just use OMRI approved, stuff, like you use pesticides.
Different tools. Right.
Right. You use the same, but different tools. He's like, and he goes, it's going to take you a couple of years. He said, but I promise you, he said, what the key is to listen to the rhythm and allow yourself to the rhythm of the plants, because they will start to tell you what you need to do. And then you start to actually really true organic gardening is really connecting in that way. So you do it completely different, and it's listening to what the plants are telling you, and you're finding ways to encourage it, to allow it to evolve, allow the crop to evolve.
It's a whole different balance.
Yes. And he was totally on point. It took me a couple of years. Right. And the first couple of years was like, oh my God, I got to put this on. And oh my God, I got to put this on. And then it was
right. I find that even just in my backyard now, because I was looking at my milkweed and I was like, oh my God, aphids, where's the insecticidal soap? And I went, no, where are the ladybugs? Bring on the ladybugs.
Right. Or when you start seeing a certain thing, like a lot of ladybugs or a lot of praying mantises or a lot of parasitic wasps, you start going, or beneficial wasps, you go, oh, well, I must have an overabundance or an imbalance that they can't come in to balance out, but they do come in to balance it out if you allow it to happen, And so,
well, and you almost feel irresponsible for not jumping in there.
Right.
And so, trying to make it different.
Control it. Right.
Yeah. Control it.
And so what happens with that is then you are the big god of the plants going, I am controlling all of this. So it's the same thing in medicine, right? It's the same thing in holistic health, right? It's the same kind of things, because when people go over to holistic health, and we've been doing that for both of us for a long time, right?
Right.
Or when you first do that, though, you tend to react the same way, and then eventually you change differently and look at bigger picture things and interconnected things and how everything connects versus how everything is separate, right? Well, guess what? Spirituality, same exact thing, right? But what's happening is we're evolving so quickly that we don't, like, the ego is having a hard time catching up.
Well, and you don't have the luxury of that. Well, let me really think this through. Let me try this and try this and try this. It's like, bam, it hits you, and you I hate to use the word have to or need to, but the guidance needs to be right there
Yeah.
and that clear channel of connection to that guidance to say, this is what I need to do.
Right. And so what's happening is the ego gets panicked and says, I don't think I have the tools for this. I don't know how to do this right. I have to look at everything around me and like get this from outside, because it's used to getting all this stuff externalized. Right.
Right.
So the psychic will tell me, this counselor will tell me, this particular practitioner will tell me, this astrologer will tell me, like, and however you want to do it, this church will tell me this, whatever,
Or my family.
or my family or my friends or all this kind of stuff. Right. And then we start practicing that going within thing. And then it's like, well, yeah, that's great. But these people told me this, and 3 other people told me this. So maybe that's really what I should be doing, instead of what works for you individually. Right.
Right. Right.
And so we got to talking about, it's interesting that where we started from is how in, like, we've been looking a lot at, both of us separately and together, who we serve, how we, what we bring to the table, and what we want to do, and all that kind of stuff. Right. So what a lot of people are doing this year is sort of like rehashing what they want to do. Good morning,
Hey,
Michael. And so, it started with this feeling that being in middle adulthood today is almost about complete invisibility, right? You get to, like, say 45 to 65, and you are almost, good morning, Gloria. Like, after you're 65, you're special because you're older, right?
Right. Right.
And before you're 45, you're of the younger, louder generation. Good morning, Yasmin. And then it's like everybody in the middle, X and Y generations, pretty much, right? Mostly are pretty, like, unless you really.
Yeah, they just kind of blur.
Yes.
It's
Unless
like
you
they're
really,
there, but they're not individuals.
right. And so culture doesn't pay attention to them. All they're telling us is either we're old, or we have to act younger, we have to act older or younger, but there's nothing about just being who we are.
Right.
There is, but there's so much screaming all over the place, right? So then we're talking about a demographic, right? But then we started talking about, well, let's talk about the characteristics of the demographic, right? And so it was like, well, we're the generation that actually, it's sort of the quiet generation of taking it all in and processing it on, do I want to do this or do I don't, right? We're, like, we're the ones who were the first latchkey kids, whatever. We had all this time to ourselves, and we didn't have the internet. So,
Right.
And we set ourselves up in this way to, in general, be, more observant, more internal in many ways, right? Because of that, because we had to figure a lot of things out on our own. But then here's what happened is then we started.
And we were the first, you talk about the latchkey kids. That would mean that both parents are working.
Yeah.
Which is different. So it was like we were having to.
Or divorced household.
Right. Right. So it was more a question of, the rules don't apply anymore. So, and there's no new rule book anymore.
Right.
Or yet.
Yeah.
So what do I do? What do I do? How do I handle this? And
we had to figure it out.
Right. Well, and it was, this works for me.
Right. Not for everybody. Right.
Right.
I have something in my eye here. Yeah. And so, so when you apply that to spirituality, it's like, well, there are many of us in this middle area, right, who realize that our consciousness is very individual to ourselves.
Right.
Now, it depends on where we are on our health, on our consciousness, like where we are in our awareness and stuff, our self-awareness. And that's why we always talk about something like a hair that's hanging in my eye. And that's like, my face is like annoying me. But it's like, when it depends on how, so like, here's the thing. We also then now have had a lifetime of being influenced by what our kids, right? Our parents, both ends of the spectrum. How many people do we know in our age groups who have had kids and then they've had parents that they've tended to as kids, as elders, and it's again, being sandwiched in between. And so then you take on a lot of the things that have to do with those other people that are taking all the attention because of how loud it is due to what they are, where they are as part of the symphony, instead of remembering, no, we are here to have a specific message, right? A specific purpose, a specific way of doing things. And so, and almost the reminder to shh, shh, shh.
Right.
And listen. So we have groups that are fighting each other now to get their seat at the table, right?
Right. And the louder and the more bold and the more outrageous their language is, the more attention they feel they're getting.
Yes. Well, and they are getting that attention because that's how we have now evolved our society. Social media, the louder you are, the more obnoxious you are. Like, oh, okay, well, like, what if I did my YouTubes in a bikini top, or something like
Right,
that.
right. It's like, how do I become seen?
Right. Or what was the other thing we said? Oh, we can just rent like a dozen puppies and kittens and have them in our videos because then we'll have people sharing them everywhere. Right.
Right.
Because, and it's not judging anybody. It's just where each group tends to be. Right. But it's caused such a loud circus all over the place. Right. And then there's an awakened group of individuals in the middle that are going, okay, well, I see a lot different in truth. I feel a lot different in truth of really my consciousness is about me. Right. And it seems that many people that I come to, that we've developed a circle with, are in that demographic as well.
Right.
In different ways. It's like, okay, well, I've come this to me, but it's a challenge to get heard, right? Because it's, how do you be invisible and uninvisible at the same time, right? How do you allow yourself to go within and be uninvisible without being attached to having to be the screamer at the top of the mountain, right? And how many people do we know who say, well, I just don't want to do all that work of like being out on social media 500 times a day and
and almost begging and babysitting.
Right.
Which that's so time consuming and so distracting.
Michael says, I've come to terms with if I don't have a purpose. That's outside of being, you have to read that. I don't have my reading glasses on.
Okay, so I've come to terms with if I don't have a purpose that's outside of being, that's okay. If the universe wants me to move
and do something, I'll make sure
it will make sure that I am there to do that.
Right. And more of us are like that. But then it seems like we are. So what Sarah and I been came to was, it's like, we're the uninvisible, right? It's like, we're here to do the job, and y'all can scream all you want and do all you want and get all the attention and everything else. But when we're called to action, that's going to be the most important part. That is always the most important part. And there are times when I am called to do something or be something, and it doesn't make sense. But I have that connection with my inner voice, right? That's still inner voice that says do or be here or do this. And
Well,
that's
and
what,
in our conversation leading up to this, we talked about how you ask kids or even you ask adults, if you could pick a superpower, what would it be? And it was like, oh, I would want to be invisible.
right. The invisibility cloak, right?
And the invisibility cloak. So you look at what that power gives you that's so desirable. So if we look at the perspective of if we feel invisible in society, um, what powers lie within that?
Right. And that's being able to move around with such fluidity, right? Under the
And
radar.
under the radar,
Yes.
exactly, under the radar. So in empowering yourself through that invisibility, it is the uninvisible.
Yes. Right. Because it's not being, but then also being okay with the moments you're called to stand in front of the crowd, to stand and to be very visible, right? And then being then being invisible again. And it's like being unattached to both sides
Right.
and still flowing through. Now, the key is how do we function and have businesses doing that?
Right. Well, and that to me, that all comes back to that tapping into and that connection to number one, yourself, knowing yourself, and where I always focus on what gives me freedom. And if it's a mindset that keeps me in a certain behavior, that's not freedom.
Mhm.
So I can perform the same tasks freely or unfreely, and the difference is the mindset.
Yeah. Michael says, I feel like the most hidden things are the things lying in plain sight. Exactly.
Exactly,
All
which
the
the power
answers,
is there.
it's here. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. And that's what we call magical all the time, which is like, oh, well, it was just there for me to take or decide on or make a move on. How many times we've been fretting about this and that or whatever. And then it's like, well, as soon as you just take that decision, then everything forms to create it around it. And it's like, well,
Right.
but the power of all that is finding our own rhythm, right? Our own, the way it works for us, like what we're
Right.
talking about.
Well, and it's like, I know I keep coming back to this, but my latest adventure is looking at my freedoms, and freedom is different for everyone.
Well, and
it's very
people don't even know the
personal.
word of freedom for most people don't even know what freedom is, in all honesty.
Exactly.
Like they say they're free, but they're not, because it's like this. Are you free from thinking that you have to do a set of actions to stay in a house, right? Or in a
Right.
relationship or in a job? Well, then that's not freedom, right?
Right.
It's I'm free to be me and to do this, and whatever is there is what's there for me, because I trust the universe will support me. That's freedom. When you
Right.
completely let go and say, yeah, I'd like to create this. I'm going to allow it to happen. And even if it happens differently than I would ever expect, then I know it's perfect. Right.
Right. Well, and freedom in your own flavor of joy.
Right. Well, and also like when we talk about spirituality stuff, right? It's freedom from expecting things a certain way. And, it's funny because we get into consciousness and then we get stuck in consciousness, like stuck in non-physical, right? Well, we
Right.
talked about that with the weight thing, like gaining weight and whatever, how our physical bodies try to balance that. And because then we don't stay present within our bodies as much as we're present outside of our bodies. And part of the game is to get that presence all the way through, right?
Right.
And so it's like we go, and then we're not free either, because then we forget how to live life here, right? We forget that we're here embodied for a reason. We're here to actually have experiences in a certain way as part of the symphony that does feed into the evolution, that does feed into the consciousness evolution, that might not seem it in everyday terms because of expectations and what we say. It's like either we say, well, either you're just living this very 3D life or you're living this very ethereal life, but
Right.
there's no, like this, there's very little connection of both. And that's what you and I talk about a lot, but it's an invisibility thing because people aren't interested in it. They want to know like the next activation, the next,
Download, right?
download, the next message from, some star being, which is really just another version of ourselves,
Right. Well, and I always think back to the book that we read, The Afterlife of Billy Fingers,
Ugh, I
and
love that.
how most of the people who knew the man Billy Fingers judged his life because it was a life of irresponsibility, a life of
Drugs,
drug.
a drug addiction on the street even. And
Right. And after his death, coming back to his sister who wrote the book and saying it was perfect. My life was perfect, and exactly what I wanted.
Yes.
Exactly what I needed. Exactly everything was perfect. And I remember that because that perfect is so individual, and
Mhm.
it's so powerful and so freeing to be able to find that for yourself and to embrace that for yourself now.
Mhm.
And live in that perfection and
Right.
allow that to flow forward from you. That is so critical to where we are right now, because that is in and of itself its own form of guidance.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And so, and Glorious is an awesome book. Yeah.
Right.
It is. It's a great, easy read. So if you haven't read it,
It
Afterlife
is.
of Billy Fingers, Annie Kagan is the author. I've read it like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, but it's just a great, and it was a reason I loved it is it's so aligned with the things that I talk about and what you talk about, and how, like, for years, I mean, when I first discovered it was like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I talk about. What a great story or experience around having that realization. But
Right.
so the thing is, what do we do? Because you know what? Essentially, a lot of people who watch and listen to us are of the same group of the uninvisible, we're calling them. We're
Right.
calling ourselves, It's like, well, it's time for us to grow that community, to come together. But here's the thing, we don't come together. So the thing is, we have so much going on. Things have become really loud in the world of spirituality, right? Really
Right.
loud. I mean, social media is just crazy. And you have 500,000 different, practitioners, and everybody's doing it a unique way, which is beautiful.
Right. Absolutely.
But the key is to go and see what you're pulled to, but then also remember that the goal is to find your own way,
Right.
essentially, at the end, right? So Gloria says there are always people who are ready to judge for many reasons. They may not in many ways look at themselves, so they focus on others. Well, but that's the habit, right? That's the habit we
Right.
get into, is because we judge. I had a really interesting conversation with someone close to me, like within the past couple of weeks, when it was like, all right, they know what I do. I know that they know how to do this kind of stuff and everything, right? And they called me up and tell me, oh, I went to a real medium.
Right.
And I was like, what do you mean a real medium versus?
Yeah, a fake one.
And I was like, and what does that mean? And I was like, okay, so did you learn anything new? Well, no, this sort of surprised me, but then, then I was just like, okay, so basically not everything we've already seen and gotten was validated to you because somebody else told you that you had to pay, versus just trusting that you had the answer yourself,
Right.
But that's the habit we're in. And the louder things get, the more we turn our brain off. And I don't know about you, this is a funny thing. Like, so in my husband and I take Kung Fu, and we're about to test for our 3rd degree this weekend, 3rd degree black belt this weekend. But, we both are like, so some people practice and they speak what they're doing every step of the way. That makes me crazy, because what that does for me is it turns off my brain and I start listening to what they're saying. Right.
Oh, that would make me insane.
Right. So I start listening to what they're saying. I turn off my own brain, and then I don't remember what I'm working on anyway, and I get lost. Right. Versus going inside and going through what I know. But that's what we do. We do that all the time. We are so used to externalizing now. We have externalized with social media, with all kinds of stuff, with over stimulation to the nth degree, that we are in this habit of hearing and seeing, and then we turn off what's inside of us versus turning down the volume on the outside and turning up the volume on the inside.
Right. Right. And I think that, we talk about the difference between the invisible and the uninvisible. And I think that I know I have been invisible, and I've felt invisible, and I've felt frustrated by it.
Mhm.
And the fact that I have come to terms with that and seen it as my superpower,
Right.
and embrace that in my own way, takes me from being that invisible to the uninvisible, to where I now use it as and embody that and empower myself through that.
Right. Because what the ego says is, no, 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 I have to be up front and center all the time. Right. I have to be
Right.
like noticed. I have to be validated. I have to be accepted to be important, to be valuable, or whatever. So I have to have this kind of response, this kind of expectation of how people respond to me. And I realized in talking, like, I was talking about this last week and looking at, I have become, over the past 11 years, 12 years, 13 years doing this consciously, I've become so fluid, right, that I do
Right.
become invisible,
Right.
because I know what's important. I know it's not important, right? And so if it's unimportant, I'm not connected to it. I'm not attached to it, right? And then it's like, okay. And so what happens is, in this society, in how we are today, with the squeaky wheel getting the oil, right?
Right.
Being this fluid makes you invisible. But the key is, instead of looking at it as a detriment, to actually making it your superpower, like you're saying.
Well, and I've found that when I approach things, in that knowing my invisibility, it's almost like I have more confidence going in, because there's not that overarching fear of being seen. And it really just adds a dynamic to where my confidence level and everything increases. And that's not even the intention that I've set. It's like just a natural consequence of feeling that empowerment of being invisible.
Right. And not when you choose to not be. It's like a choice. It's funny. Michael says Angela has become the woman behind the curtain. Lol. Yeah. Well, but when you start seeing it as a superpower, that's when I had such a shift this week in talking about that, like, you know what? It was a frustration for me. Right.
Right.
And I'm like, except it keeps me so unattached and so, like, yep, I'm here this moment, and I'm very visible this moment, and then I'm invisible in the next moment, because I just am free to go about
Right.
what I'm guided to do, what I'm guided to be,
Right. And
And
I
that's
feel that a lot of those who are out there vying for your attention and getting louder get lost in that. I need to make this contact, and I need to make it almost about me, not you. And when you come from that place of invisibility, or uninvisible for that matter, it's on such a more genuine level, in my opinion. That's been my experience.
No, it's true. It's true, because then I'm there. If I'm someplace with somebody, it's because I'm guided to be there. Right. And then I'm
It's
just
not out of a
completely
sense
present.
of obligation, or this will get me brownie points, or I'll be seen better if I do this. Right.
Yeah.
It's
So
very
then-
authentic.
Yes. And then and again, it's free, because I'll tell you what, over the years that I've been doing this, like, seeing how it all connects in now, right, has been disengaging from obligations. Right. And, it was funny, because something came up last week, where someone was like, I need you, it was like this, whatever. And I just was like, and the compulsion, the habit is always, oh, well, to be of service, da, da, da. And it's like, well, then guidance was, nope, not for you.
Right.
not for you right now. So then you just learn a loving way to say, yes, but thank you, but no, thank you. Or yeah, sorry, not at this point. Or, I mean, and that's authentic. That's authentic, right? We're not used to that. And so and the thing that I see in my mind when I say that, though, is in that fluidity is being also, what's the word? That was weird. Oh, I lost Facebook. So if you see any comments, it just says Facebook is being updated. It just popped out on my phone. So any more comments you have to is up on you. That fluidity. But anyway, so that was weird. What was I going to say? What was I saying? Totally forgot. Anyway, I don't know. We'll get back to it. But anyhow, okay, now I'm getting back on now. That's weird. But oh yeah, it's like being, I can't think of the word. In Harry Potter, it was like the animagus, like it's being somebody, somebody who's constantly transforming, constantly.
Right.
Okay, I know there's a word for it. But as you're doing that, and as we're evolving, that's where we're getting called to be in such a level of fluidity, right?
Right.
And we're only free to be in that level of fluidity if we are so animagus. Yeah, the animagus, right? But it was like beyond, there's another term for that. But it's like for just being able to be constantly transforming, right?
Shape-shifting.
That's it. Shape-shifting. That's easy. I don't know why I can remember that. But that's what we're getting called to be. And we're only free to do that when we totally become that independent on our inner voice.
Right.
And so like, this is why the old forms of spirituality are not as effective as they used to be, because we have completely shifted gears into this consistently quick evolution. Like it is crazy fast now.
Well, and it's so internally based, not externally based. And so the need for the ritual and the need for the light codes and the light language and the downloads and all that kind of stuff.
The ceremony and having to do it a certain way on a certain day and a certain,
and
moon.
And all of that is already within you. So it's that internal discovery.
Right. And so
that works.
The magical part is the uninvisibility. That is truly what happens when you become unattached, right? Meaning, and when we say that, like, because we were talking about invisible, and then it was like, well, uninvisible. Sarah said uninvisible. It's like, oh, I like that word a lot, because it's like, I'm here, I'm not. I'm here, and then I'm there, and then I'm here, and then and this, and then I'm not. And I'm allowing.
I'm here, but you might not see me, but you sense my presence.
Right.
Which that's really powerful.
And it's so subtle that that you just sort of feel it as a whiff, right? Like, it's funny when I've had people say to me, oh, you came into my meditation the other day. And I'm like, good, I'm glad whatever it was there to help you, but that's for all of us. And that's the superpower for us to embrace. It's a completely new and different way of embracing our consciousness. And it's very like, it is going to be unique to every one of us. So the first steps are letting go of the old habits of that external, the need for the external validation, the need for the external, like somebody else telling me what to do or how to do it. And it's, like what I've been guided to from the beginning of when Trinity came in was, this is a foundation for how to use something, because your mind needs to grasp onto something. But beyond that, at some point, you will stop calling it Trinity, which is why it's so fluid, right? And you just realize it's just your own divine consciousness that you're accessing, and you take the intermediary steps away because you don't need it anymore, right? But that's for anything. That's any spiritual practice that we do. That's any any exercises or anything that we do, eventually the key is not to have them, it's to use them as the tools and not the crutch, right? That
Yeah.
we've said for years, right? And
Right.
so that the key is knowing at some level, all of this comes from in here, not out there.
Mhm.
And there's
Right.
nothing that's really out there. So if we put all this time trying to search for something out here, then we're missing what's already there. It's like Dorothy and the ruby slippers,
Right. Right.
all you had to do was
Yeah.
want to be.
Searching for something that you already had.
Yes. Yeah. So, all right. Well, so this week's clearing would be, well, how about finding clarity on that uninvisibility for each of us, right? Like
Right.
what that would mean. What, free ourselves to be that way, right? To let go of what it is that still might be holding us in the pattern instead of preventing that fluidity and the flexibility and the internalization.
Mm-hmm.
That feels really good
That does.
in a fun, enjoyable way. All right.
Let's make the invisible visible.
Yes. Well, let's make the invisible visible without any and I don't want to say consequence. Oh, wow. There went one of those tones in my ear. That was oh, that's really loud to me. That's funny. Yes, make the invisible visible, but inconsequential in a way that it ties you up, right? That it holds you
Right.
in.
Right.
But how about this? We'll make the invisible visible in complete freedom.
Yes. Yes. Which is completely different, because I find that those that have the need to be visible are in a prison of their own.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is fabulous. This feels so great.
This is an amazing one. I can feel it already.
It took us 4 conversations to get to this last week, because
And then we even had to do a share too.
Yeah, we did. All right, everyone. So as we do, everybody get comfortable, close your eyes, take a deep breath as you step out of separation, back into wholeness and oneness, and hold ourselves at the vibration where that is our truth. That is from where we exist, create, and experience. All right. That was seamless. That was very nice.
I could just live there.
I was like, oh, that's really brought a lot of clarity in too. It's like, oh, look at that fluidity. It just feels so good and free. And that's what we feel like, what we have felt like outside of the body, right? And then we create these bodies, and it's like, no, but part of it is the fluidity of being in the body and out of the body simultaneously, and being able to be both, right?
Right.
And it was so fluid of like watching, it was like flowing through so many things. And it was like, oh, well, then you get to remember that you're everything so much more easily. And yeah.
Right. I saw, well, I was shown the, how there's so much within the universe that we can't see, like the frequencies of light that we can't see and we can't hear, certain tones, and the energies, and like radio waves, and all those things, even silly things like cell phone waves and television, all these things. And it's like, that's the power of that invisibility. And it was like, as soon as I connected into all the unseen, the things that are invisible, I got this huge energetic shift. And it was like my spine cracked from top to bottom. Wow. And at the same time, all my dogs went and just settled right into their breath. And it was it was incredible. All the things, like, you think about, when you have, like, in the animal kingdom, when you have someone hunting, their superpower is being unseen, sneaking up on their prey. And I mean, everything, I just started seeing everything so differently.
Yeah.
And it's the ideas just started firing of all the ways to use this and integrate.
Right.
And it
Yes,
was
me
just
too. But it's funny because,
incredible.
and then what you're talking about is that other element of, well, and how about utilizing the things that are unseen to us, right? That are invisible to us otherwise. Yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, that feels fabulous. Very yummy for this week.
Right. So let's have some feedback. What did you all get? What do you see or don't see?
Right. And see how, and let us know how it goes. Also, if you find this useful, share this with others. Please forward the link on your social media as well. So we all become uninvisible in our invisibility.
Right. We're getting a lot more subscribers and followers and likes. And
Michael says no boundaries anymore. Yes.
Exactly.
Right. Which scares the ego when you say that, right? But it's really no, because there really aren't any boundaries. They're pretend.
Right. Exactly.
It's non-attached fluidity, which is the key, right? Non-attached.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. Yes. Share, like, subscribe, comment, and we will see you next time.
And also watch it again. Do the meditation as many times, because I think you'll find that it evolves every time you do it.
Yes.
It will be different. Yeah.
And out of space and time, we're all there together. So
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
All right. So we'll see you next time. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avignoni
signing off with this week's Living Ascension. Have a great one, everyone.